We talk endlessly about narcissists. We have made them the villains of every therapy session, every toxic relationship post, every Reddit thread about difficult people. We dissect their patterns, name their tactics, build entire content empires around spotting them. But nobody talks about the ones who are impossible to read, almost invisible, rarely studied. They sit across from you at dinner, nod, smile, ask about your week, and you leave knowing absolutely nothing real about them. Not because they lied, because they never actually opened. And here is the strange part. They are not doing it on purpose. They are your colleague who is always pleasant, but you have worked with them 3 years and still cannot tell if they even like you. The friend who listens perfectly but never cries. The partner who handles every crisis with terrifying calm and then disappears into themselves afterward like a door quietly closing. Their psychology is probably the most misunderstood of anyone alive today. Because people mistake their stillness for coldness, their privacy for arrogance, their composure for not caring. And once you understand where all of that came from, every single thing about them starts making complete sense. Picture this. It is 1991. You are 7 years old. Something upsetting happens at school. You come home and try to explain it to an adult. And the adult either dismisses it, gets overwhelmed by it, or somehow makes the moment about themselves. So you stand there, mid-sentence, and you learn something. Sharing things does not help. It just creates more problems. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that children who repeatedly experience emotional invalidation before age 10 are approximately 68% more likely to develop what researchers call expressive suppression as their dominant emotional regulation strategy by adulthood. That is not a personality quirk. That is a survival skill that never got unlearned. What does a child learn when their emotions cause disruption instead of comfort? They learn to keep the interior life interior. They learn that the outside face and the inside experience are two completely separate things. And they get very, very good at managing both simultaneously without letting either one touch the other. Picture this. Same child, different year. Now it is 1995. Something wonderful happens. They win something, achieve something, feel genuinely proud. They share it. And either it gets minimized or someone immediately redirects to their own story. So the child stops sharing the good things too. The editing begins. And it never fully stops. And now watch what happens when that kid grows up and someone falls in love with them. That person will spend months, sometimes years, feeling like they are pressing their face against a window, trying to see inside a house with all the lights off. The house is full. It is warm in there, but the curtains never open. This is why they never volunteer information. Not the small stuff, not the big stuff. They will answer questions if you ask them directly, but they will almost never initiate emotional disclosure on their own. It is not manipulation. It is architecture. They built walls so early they forgot they are walls. They just call it privacy now. Watch them at a party. They are perfectly fine, engaging, even charming. But ask them the next day how they really felt, and they will give you a summary, so edited it barely resembles a human experience. It was good. Nice people. That is the entire report. Not because nothing happened internally. Because translating internal into external feels genuinely dangerous. A study in developmental psychology found that adults with early emotional invalidation histories show measurably lower activity in the anterior insula during emotional disclosure tasks, which is the brain region associated with interoceptive awareness and sharing internal states. In plain English, the wiring for broadcasting feelings got quietly rerouted before it was finished being built. They speak fluent emotion. They just speak it about other people, not themselves. Ironic, right? The most unreadable person in the room is often the one who understands everyone else most clearly. That same background explains why they are almost allergic to being the center of attention. Not shyness exactly, more like an old, bone-deep discomfort with being observed too closely. They will deflect a compliment faster than most people breathe. Because being seen means being known. And being known means something could be done with that knowledge. and they have not decided yet if that is safe. Think about how this plays out at work. The colleague who does excellent work but seems almost uncomfortable when it gets praised publicly, who will go out of their way to redirect credit to the team, who does not self-promote, who somehow ends up underestimated despite being one of the most capable people in the building. A study published in the Journal of Adult Development found that individuals high in what researchers call private self-consciousness, meaning they are deeply aware of their internal states but rarely express them, are rated as significantly less ambitious by managers despite showing equivalent or superior performance outcomes compared to peers who self-promote more visibly. They are not modest. They are strategic. They decided very early that keeping the cards close was safer than playing them openly. The workplace just never updated that policy. Here is another thing. They are extraordinarily good listeners, and not in the nodding, waiting to talk way. In the genuinely absorbing, tracking every word, noticing the thing you did not say way. This is not a social skill they developed. It is a detection system they built in childhood when reading the room was actually critical information for survival. You will feel unusually understood around them. Maybe more understood than you feel around people who talk more. They ask the exact right question at the exact right moment. They remember things you said 6 months ago that you forgot you told them. It is deeply comforting until you realize the dynamic is entirely one direction and you know almost nothing real about them in return. A paper in the American Journal of Psychology described this pattern as asymmetric intimacy, where one person consistently holds the listener role and the other holds a disclosure role, and found that the listener-dominant partner reports significantly higher relationship anxiety despite appearing calmer and more self-contained to outside observers. They are not distant. They are terrified. They have just gotten very good at looking unbothered. The most misread people in every room are not the ones who talk too little. They are the ones who listen too well. You leave feeling so seen that you never noticed you did all the seeing. And then there is how they handle conflict, or more precisely, how they avoid it with the elegance of a professional escape artist. They do not fight. They go quiet. They become very polite, which is somehow more unsettling than yelling. They say, "I am fine," in a tone that communicates nothing and somehow communicates everything. And then they process the entire thing alone at 3 in the morning in a journal nobody will ever read. A partner of this type will describe the experience like trying to resolve something with a fog. The fog is not hostile. The fog is not unkind. The fog just will not give you anything solid to hold on to. And when the conversation is over, the fog says, "We are good," and somehow you believe it even though nothing actually got resolved. The Journal of Personality and Social Psychology published research showing that individuals who use conflict avoidance as a primary coping strategy report internal rumination levels nearly 4 times higher than their external behavior suggests. They are not letting it go. They are just letting you think they are letting it go. They never pick fights, but they are always quietly, absolutely keeping score. Here is what is fascinating though. The same emotional containment that makes them so difficult to read also makes them extraordinarily stable under pressure. When everything falls apart, they are the person everyone else calls. Not because they do not feel it, because they have 40 years of practice not letting what they feel derail what needs to happen. They are the still water you can drink from while the river is flooding. This is how they show love. Not with declarations, not with big romantic speeches, with presence, with remembering, with doing the thing you needed before you knew you needed it, with quietly fixing the problem while you were still figuring out there was a problem. Love for them is a verb they do in private. A study in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry found that adults with early emotional suppression histories show significantly elevated scores on behavioral expressions of care, meaning they express affection through action at rates nearly twice that of verbally expressive individuals, while simultaneously scoring lower on verbal affirmation scales. They love loud. They just love loud in a frequency most people cannot hear. In parenting, this creates an interesting inheritance. They tend to raise children who feel deeply safe and practically competent because the parent shows up, handles things, and never makes the child anxious. But sometimes those children grow up slightly uncertain whether they were actually loved, because love was always demonstrated, never really said out loud. What they gave the next generation was reliability, consistency, the knowledge that the adults would not fall apart, that the house would hold, that there would always be someone calm in the room. That is not a small gift. That is the entire gift some people never got. What they struggle with today is letting anyone do anything for them. Asking for help feels like a structural failure. Receiving care without immediately trying to reciprocate feels uncomfortable enough to ruin the moment. Being known, really known, still trips every alarm the 7-year-old installed. And the 7-year-old is still in there, still editing, still waiting to see if this situation is safe. What makes them quietly remarkable is the sheer amount of interior life they carry without complaint. They have entire worlds inside them that nobody gets to visit, not because they are withholding, because they genuinely do not know how to issue the invitation. And they have learned to live with that as the cost of being who they are. They are the deep-sea creatures of human personality, alive at extraordinary depth, luminous in their own way, completely invisible to anyone who only ever swims near the surface. And deep-sea creatures do not get studied much. The equipment required to reach them is expensive. Most people do not go that far down, so they stay there, fascinating, unknown, carrying entire ecosystems inside them that the sunlight never touches. They will read this, recognize themselves completely, and tell absolutely no one. If this hit home for you, if you recognized yourself in that 7-year-old still standing mid-sentence, still editing, still waiting to see if it is safe, you are not broken. You adapted. And that adaptation kept you intact long enough to become the person sitting here right now, watching a psychology video at whatever hour this is. Please subscribe, and if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member. It genuinely keeps this kind of content alive.